perfect place for having programs. Spacious. The layout is very conducive for coming together and hearing about Krishna and talking about Krishna. So, excuse me 1 second. I'm all bundled up like this because a few weeks ago I was in Brazil where it was summertime. You know what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita? Matra sparshas tukonteya shitoshna shukadukada. Happiness and distress comes in this world just like the coming and going of the winter and summer season. So 2 weeks ago I was in summer. 32 degrees, well, you think in Fahrenheit, I don't know, maybe 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And now tonight it's supposed to go down near like about 34 degrees.
Oh my God.
So going back and forth between such climates helps you to understand the flickering nature of happiness and distress. Now, who here doesn't like material happiness? Raise your hand. We all think that we need more material happiness, right? And it would be very good if Krishna arranged that we had more material happiness, right? Right? Because that would inspire us to serve Krishna more, we think, yes? Yes. If we were materially more happy, if our senses were gratified more, then we would be very grateful to Krishna, and surely we would engage in his service. Is that how you've seen the material world works? No. How does it work? The more that you become caught up in material happiness, the more bound you become to material existence, and the more you suffer. Because whatever binds you to material existence causes suffering. Because material existence is suffering. But can we really understand that? You know, maybe it's not really that bad. I mean, perhaps in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dukkhalayam shashvatam. This world is temporary and miserable. Perhaps he says that, just to kind of scare us. Like parents, when the kid's naughty, they say, watch out, you better behave or we're going to let the boogeyman get you. Yes? Any of you have parents who said like that? So, maybe Krishna's just trying to scare us, just give us some exaggeration. Anitya masukam lokam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. It's a temporary world of unhappiness. Maybe it's not that bad. What do you think? Perhaps we should have a balanced perspective, right? Some Krishna and some Maya. Just so that we can compare, We want to be well-rounded. We don't want to be exclusive, We want to sample all aspects of the human experience, right? The devotional, a little bit of hedonism will do you no harm. Just proper measure, right? Right? Keeps little hedonism keeps the circulation flowing, What do you think? And after all, you got to get it out of your system one way or another, and probably the best way to get the hedonism out of your system is just kind of burn off the lower self by indulging in it. What do you think? When you burn off the lower self, presto, what's left?
The higher self.
The higher self, exactly! You understand. It sounds perfectly Californian, doesn't it? So, we need to understand, what is it exactly about material happiness Do the Hare Krishnas just like to beat up on material happiness, you know? Maybe they take it to an extreme. We shouldn't be killjoys, you know? We just are trying to stamp out any kind of human good feeling. Okay, we don't want to blame Krishna, right? Krishna has to say what he says in order to keep us enthusiastic in bhakti. So therefore he's probably exaggerating a bit, you know? But still, let us consider material happiness in changing rapidly from one climate to another and remembering Krishna's verse in Bhagavad Gita, Mata Spashasta Kaunteya Shitosha Sugata. Okay, 1 minute. The air was feeling warm and comfortable. Next minute, change climates, change places, and the air feels pinching, especially early in the morning or late at night. So I have the same body, but because circumstances have changed that affect my body, my happiness and distress have changed. So, doesn't that show how fragile your conception of happiness is? Just a gust of wind and your whole happiness experience is blown away. Like clouds in the sky. Lord Kapila Dev in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam gives the example of how clouds, big white puffy clouds, they float in the sky, unaware of the power of the wind. At any moment, the wind can blow and just dissipate the clouds. Similarly, Lord Kapila Dev says, the living entity proceeds his merry way, her merry way in life, unaware that time is driving the whole situation. Have you ever thought about that? How much encased we are in time. It's driving every aspect of our material existence. Remember the story of King Muchakunda, those of you who have read Krishna book? Remember? He received the benediction from the demigods because he was an earthly king who went to the heavenly planets to fight on the Devas' behalf. And so they gave him a benediction. Ask of us whatever you want. We're so pleased with your efforts. You aided us in fighting the demons. What would you like? He said, I'm so tired. I just want the benediction. I can just sleep and sleep and sleep, and if anyone dares to wake me up, I can burn that person to death with my eyes. That's how tired he was. You think you've been tired before? That's the benediction he asked for. We can't imagine the austerities he had gone through. His whole body his muscles were slack. He was just so beaten down, exhausted, tired from aiding the demigods. So he said, just give me the benediction, let me sleep without being disturbed. And if anyone dares to disturb me, I can burn that person to ashes with my vision. So the demigod said, all right. So Muchakunda was in a cave on a mountain in deep slumber. And you know how the Kalyavana demon was chasing Krishna? And so Krishna purposely led the Kalyavana demon into the cave where Muchakunda was resting. Because actually Krishna's thinking, I try to only fight high-grade Kshatriyas, but this Kalyavana is too low, so let me arrange another way for him to exit this world. I won't do it directly. So, Kalyavana couldn't understand why Krishna was running away, apparently, from him. Stop, you coward! Stop! But he entered the dark cave where Krishna had gone into. And then he saw this form on the floor of the cave, laying there, sleeping. And Kalyavana thought, this is that coward Krishna. Just look at him, just laying on the floor of the cave sleeping. This is the great hero. All right, I'm a fair fighter. I won't kill him while he's laying there. But what I'll do, I'll wake him up. I'll just walk up to him and give him a huge kick with my foot. In Vedic culture, to touch someone with your foot, it was considered a great insult. Throw your shoes at someone. So, Kalyavana kicked what he thought was Krishna, but it was Muchakunda. Muchakunda woke up, and it was Kalyavana in the line of his vision, and he just burned Kalyavana to ashes with his glance. And then Muchakunda looked around and saw this most dazzling, beautiful personality. And he began to inquire, who are you? But then he thought better of himself. He thought, this is obviously a superior person. Look at his dazzling effulgence. Look at his beauty. Because he's superior, I should first identify myself to him. That's the etiquette. And then I can hear who he is. So, Muchakunda said, allow me to explain myself. Please hear my autobiography. I was such a powerful emperor. And he began to describe the history of his being, a majestic emperor with authority in all directions. And he described his royal life. And in particular, he said a couple of things that really stand out. He was giving his realizations to Krishna. He said, during the day I wielded such power. Kings from all directions would come and place their helmets at my feet as they bowed down while I sat on the throne. But then, when night came, I had to crawl into the chambers of my queens and beg at their feet for sense gratification. That's what he was telling Krishna. Very autobiographical. So, he said another striking statement. He said, I forgot about time, but time did not forget about me. At the right moment, like a snake gobbles up a frog, time struck. So let's think about that. We forget about time, but time does not forget about us. We're oblivious. We're not noticing how time is carrying us away, just like the massive clouds in the sky. So what about our happiness and distress? Let's put on our thinking caps and let's try to really analyze happiness and distress. If you can catch this, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble. Because, as I hope to prove to you, material happiness is a pain in the neck. How could that be? I don't know if I'm ready to hear this. But just listen. Time brings us both happiness and distress according to our karma. Now, according to the strict Bhagavat scientific understanding, you cannot increase your material happiness any bit more than what you're due to get according to your karma. No matter what you do, you're not going to get anything more, you're not going to get anything less. Now you might say, well, that sounds very fatalistic. You mean I'm just supposed to do nothing and I'll get the same amount of happiness as someone who works so hard to get ahead? I don't know. Isn't that the kind of philosophy that ruined India before the IT boom and they took everyone's IT jobs? What does Prahlad Maharaj say? The 5-year-old, astounding devotee. He says, Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya deha dehinam yogina. Sarvatra labhyate daivad yata dukam ayamnata. Prahlad Maharaj explains that your happiness and distress in their correct amounts for this lifetime, try to understand this, they're already packed in your body at birth. It's like karmic seeds, which will sprout in due course of time. So your amount of happiness and distress is predetermined due to your activities in the past life. So it's just a question of the movements of time for that happiness and distress to manifest. But the amount is already predetermined. Now sometimes people misunderstand. So that means that all my activities are predetermined. No. But it means no matter what you do, no matter what you choose to do, you're not going to get more happiness than what is due to you. All right, you might say, are you trying to say it's predetermined that this man is with this woman? He's with Jill instead of Jane. And you trying to say it's predetermined that on the weekend he's decided to switch and be with Jane instead of Jill, and it's all predetermined. No, that's not what it means. What does it mean? What does the Shastra mean? It means that whether you are with Jill or Jane, it doesn't matter, you're not going to get more material happiness than you do. Oh, think about that. So instead of blaming Jill or Jane, realize that you're dealing with your own karma in terms of the amount of happiness and distress. Of course, we don't think like that. We blame the other person, right? Why aren't you giving me what I need? Why don't you understand? Maybe you can remember yourself saying so many times, sentences that began with, if only you would... Yeah, some of you remember that? If you would only... We're angry that the person hasn't fulfilled our conceptions. And therefore, we feel that we're not getting the happiness that we deserve from that person. When you don't get what you think you deserve, you get angry. Maybe you might even yell at the person, I've worked so hard to give you what you want. I've gone through so much. I've listened to you talk so much just to make you happy. And this is how you treat me. You can't even recognize what makes me happy. What's the use of this relationship? So we blame the other person. You're not the repository. You're not the warehouse of happiness that I thought you were going to be. So then you decide, it's time for a switch. In whatever way your material life is expressing itself. Time to change cars, time to change houses, time to change jobs, time to change girlfriends or boyfriends. But no matter how you change, and that's not predetermined, no matter how you change, still you cannot alter the amount of material happiness or distress that you're due. So what do you think? It sounds like the game is rigged, right? No one likes to participate in a game that's rigged. You want a fair existence. But let me ask you this. Whoever told you that material existence is fair? In other words, you voluntarily chose to participate in a game that's rigged. You chose that. Then once we choose to play that game, we get angry. What kind of God created such a game, which everything is stacked, all the odds are stacked against you? But Krishna doesn't want you to play this game, but you insisted. In fact, Krishna warned you. In Bhagavad Gita, there's so many warnings, right? You can't win. Even when, what kind of game is that? At least if you're going to lose, you should recognize all the time that you're losing. But the way Maya works is, you think you're winning when you're actually losing. Well, what a clever trap. So we can't blame Krishna because he warns us, don't play this game. We were discussing this morning in Bhagavatam class how it's not actually that Krishna has designed material existence to give us suffering. Krishna's motivation in designing material existence is so that we'll have a situation in which we can learn that the miseries of material existence are unnecessary. But because we cling so tightly to material conditions, we suffer. But it's not that Krishna gives the suffering. He's giving opportunities to realize that the suffering is unnecessary. But we make it so necessary by our feverish attachments. So let's continue to talk about material happiness. We've already discussed how it's brought to you by time, courtesy of the time factor. I don't know if on television, whenever there's some special presentation, at least when I was a kid, the TV announcer would say, "This show has been brought to you courtesy of General Motors," or "This show has been brought to you by our sponsor, Colgate." So, the show of happiness and distress has been brought to you by the illusory energy of the Lord. But we think, if I have material happiness, that'll be so good. Krishna, just keep the distress away from me and bring me the happiness. Then you're a good God. The more material happiness you give me, the more I'll chant Hare Krishna. Is that the way it works? And don't you think Krishna knows it doesn't work that way? What does Krishna say? His words are, his thinking, his methodology, his psychological methodology is given in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam. Krishna says, when I see that my devotee wants from me material happiness, I'm not so unintelligent. I know how to handle his or her desires. I fulfill those desires for material happiness in such a way that he or she will never ask for that thing again. Krishna says, why should someone who is a good doctor, a qualified doctor, cure someone and not remove every trace of the disease? Krishna's explaining that. I want the best for my devotee. Why should I leave even a trace of contaminated consciousness? So if the devotee approaches me for material happiness, I know how to handle it. Just like a parent knows how to handle a child's desires. Maybe you can remember as a little kid throwing a temper tantrum. I want, give me, I want. Yes? You were like that, Dhruva? And so a good parent knows how to handle that. Because the parent knows that the child has to learn some sense control. Otherwise, the child will be a spoiled brat. So just like a good parent knows how to handle a child, that's why Mother Yashoda wanted to bind baby Krishna. He was getting into too much mischief. And then when she sought to chastise him, he was trembling in fear and crying. So Mother Yashoda thought he might just run off into the forest. So therefore she tied him to a wooden grinding mortar. So parents, they know how to raise, a good parent knows how to raise the children. But we may think it's cruel. It's like Krishna, although he's the omniscient Supreme Personality God. He was being fed by Mother Yashoda. He was on her lap. She was nursing him, staring into his beautiful face. Who can understand the great fortune of Mother Yashoda to nurse the Supreme Personality Godhead, staring into his beautiful face, unlimited beauty. Then the milk on the stove was over boiling. Everything in Mother Yashoda's house was meant for Krishna's pleasure. So she wasn't abandoning Krishna. She had particularly wanted to make nice milk products for Krishna to keep him from going into others' houses and stealing milk products. So she put Krishna down. But Krishna was offended. How can she do this? She put me down. I haven't finished being nursed. So he created such a temper tantrum. He made his eyes red with anger. He pressed his lips tightly together. Even bit his lip. Why has my mother treated me in this way? And then, when Mother Yashoda eventually bound him to the grinding mortar, Krishna's thinking, okay, let's review this situation. Number one, she put me down when I was not fully fit. Number two, all I was doing afterwards was breaking butter pots and distributing the contents in charity to the monkeys and little kids. And now, as a result of that, she has tied me to a grinding mortar. So what is the conclusion? It is time for me to do something more mischievous than ever before. And so he started looking at the Yamalarjun trees. And as he advanced toward the Yamalarjun trees, his little cowherd boyfriends were cheering him onward. Jai Krishna, yes, yes, go for it. It was his life in Vrindavan. So the point is, in Krishna's Bal Leela, he's acting like a little child who's throwing a temper tantrum. Mother has neglected me. Mother's not doing the best for me. Perhaps you can remember, if you had a good parent, and that's certainly not always these days, parenting is becoming a lost art. But a good parent knows how not to indulge the child, but to train the child, how to treat the child so the child grows up properly. I was telling the story, where was it? I think it must have been in Dallas, Texas last week. So I was telling him, when I was a 12-year-old boy, 12 or 13, I was in 8th grade, and in school, one teacher asked all the kids in the class, how much do you get every week for allowance? And so, generally, this was 1962 or 63, so when a dollar was really, had a lot of purchasing power. So most kids said, I get $1, get $2. The average was about, $1 a week. And so when it came my turn, I had to tell the truth. I said, I get 50 cents a week allowance. And all the kids looked at me like, 50 cents a week? Back then, 50 cents a week was enough to buy 3 16-ounce Coca-Colas and have 5 cents left over for a candy bar. So I would carefully ration it. Yeah. Every other day, 1 Coca-Cola, and at the end of the week, with the 5 cents left over, a Snickers or a Mars bar. Well, my brother, my younger brother, he just blew it all in one day. I used to tell him, you're so foolish. You just spend it all at once, You just immediately go to the candy store, get 10 candy bars. That he would blow his allowance for the whole week. So I said to my mother, why is all the kids in school, they get more money than me? $1 a week, $2 a week, I'm getting just 50 cents. She looked at me, you want money? Go out and get it. It was like a moment of enlightenment for me. Oh, go out and get it, okay. thought she was being cruel and that I would just have to do the necessary. She said, all right, she's being cruel. I have to just go out and get the money. So I got a job delivering newspapers in the morning before going to school. I had a newspaper route in my neighborhood. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Inhuman time. But I thought, gotta get the money. It's crazy getting up so early. And the newspaper route was right in my neighborhood. Still 4:30 in the morning. So I increased the newspaper route from 20. We were discussing this the other night at the Krishna Lounge. This feeling we have that the material world owes us a favor. You ever been around persons who always think someone owes them a favor? It's really a pain in the neck being around those persons. Hey, can you do this for me? What about that? Can you lend me this? Oh, that's really nice. Can you give it to me? That's a nice girlfriend you have. Can I talk to her? Yeah, it just feels very uncomfortable being around such persons. They just think everyone owes them a favor. I remember my dear godbrother, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, whenever he would ask me for something, he would say, come on, Maharaj. You know my legal name is John Favor. I'm always asking for favors. I'm just joking. But so we think the world owes us a favor. Where do we get that idea from? Right? We think we're destiny's child, right? And the world has some special, unique potential waiting to unfold for us, right? It's there. It's just a matter of time before that unique, special future unfolds for us. Because after all, we're in this world and we're special, so there must be something special in store for us. And when it doesn't work out like that, we get very angry. And of course, we get angry at Krishna. I'm your servant. Why don't you give me material happiness? But your material happiness will, in its proper amount, will come to you automatically. Through time. You know the example Bhagavatam gives. Yata dukkha ayatnataha. You don't long for distress. Does anyone here long for distress? Do you pray to Krishna, please give me distress? Right, when you get to Queen Kunti's prayer, let these calamities happen again and again, you turn the page real quick, right? All right, Kunti Devi ki jai. Next page, next verse. So, you don't beg Krishna for distress. I don't think anyone here is a masochist. They do exist. I was once in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Surapal from Las Vegas, he knows that building. So there was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there were some nice, respectable-looking people at the door. They were in about their mid-40s, and they were very nice, respectable persons, and they just introduced themselves. Good day, good afternoon. We are representatives from your local neighborhood masochist society. And we just would like you to know that we're here for you. I said, I don't think so. So I don't think we have any masochists here who seek to squeeze pleasure out of distress. So we don't approach Krishna for distress. We don't long for it. Yet it comes. Similarly, we don't have to worry about our material happiness. It will come. This is the point of Srimad Bhagavatam. Makes complete sense, doesn't it? Maybe too much sense, huh? Sometimes we get angry at Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. It just makes too much sense, right? Since we don't... If I could just have something to put under my feet there. I'm going to start coughing. Thanks. We don't long for distress, yet it comes. Similarly, the Shastra says, Narada Muni confirms what Prahlad Maharaj says, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovida. Someone who's a kavi, who's actually intelligent, doesn't endeavor for anything that can be obtained within the material universe. Knowing it all comes automatically. Happiness comes automatically, just as distress does. So if you can really master this principle, you'll save yourself so much trouble. Whether you're a teenager, or you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, according to psychological surveys, by the time people reach their late 50s, early 60s, they start becoming a little content, because they've lowered their expectations. First, there's a crisis as you're getting into old age. It'll never happen to you, don't worry. So, the crisis comes, oh no, my body is breaking down, I'm getting weary, and I haven't fully enjoyed to my full satisfaction. Oh no, what will become of me? You look in the mirror and see, all my options are fading fast. Oh no. You still try to see yourself as some kind of, having some kind of enjoying potential, but it's just going on in your mind. So once you get over that crisis, it's like ladies having to deal with when the wrinkles start to come. It's just a recognition of the reality that's happening. So once you get over that hump, then there's a little bit of increase in material contentment, because you've lowered your expectations. Oh well, I guess that's the way it is. Life is what it is, and you really can't beat a dead horse. I mean, I've tried for 6 decades, and so you just lower your expectations, and in that way, people can experience a little bit of material contentment, just a little bit, simply because they lowered their material expectations. There was a survey done by the UN, a global survey about why marriages fail. And this was taken into account so many countries around the world. Why marriages fall apart. And this survey cost $17 million. And so their conclusion was that marriages fall apart mainly because persons having too high expectations of the other person. I told that to one of my god sisters. She's been married for maybe 30 years. And she said, 17 million, they could have given me the money, and I could have told them that's what's going on. It's common sense. Everyone knows that. Too high expectations of the other person. You'll have to spend 17 million to figure that out. Krishna consciousness does mean lowering your material expectations. But it's not that you become hard-hearted and insensitive and just bite your fingernails and clench your hands until you turn blue in the face. There's no such thing as material happiness. all material happiness is an illusion. Don't long for any material happiness. It's going to come automatically. Yes, you may fear it's like that. No. Krishna's offering you something better. Just like when my mother said, 50 cents a week, allowance is all you get. You want more money, go out and get it. So I thought she was being cruel. But now, it would be recognized that was good parenting. So, in fact, she'll say now, maybe she was too good at it. You never stayed at home. You're always in other parts of the world. You never stay home with your mother. I taught you how to be too independent. So, similarly, it's not that Krishna is depriving us. Krishna wants to give us something much better. But we're so paranoid, you know? We're so untrusting. We apply our material experiences of being dissatisfied, being bewildered, being cheated, we apply that to Krishna. You know the psychology. A cow's been in a barn that's caught on fire. So whenever the cow sees a barn, it gets afraid. So we've been disappointed so many times, we've been hurt so many times. And so we wonder, can Krishna really deliver in the relationship? Isn't that the way human beings deal with one another in relationships? You're always analyzing, are you really delivering? What deliverables are you putting on the table? I mean lately. Not last year, but lately. I mean, not even last week. Right? Isn't that the way it works? Yeah. There has to be constant transactions going on. in a way that each person, feels that this is a worthwhile relationship. So we apply that paranoia to Krishna. And we see Krishna in that way. Krishna, I mean, not that I'm asking for anything, of course. Pure devotional service, ki jai. But at the same time, what material happiness have you given me lately? I mean, it would really help, Krishna. It would really help me if you gave me some material happiness. But why does Krishna have to give material happiness when it will come to you automatically according to your karma? And material happiness is so insignificant for Krishna. It's such a flickering thing that comes and goes so quickly. Why would Krishna want to give his devotees, his dear devotees, such a low-class substance as material happiness? But because we don't know any better, we're like little children. We think our toys are everything. What is that famous toy store? Toys R Us. That applies to the adults too. I think. Where did I tell the story about the toy truck? That was the
Krishna Lounge.
Huh?
Krishna Lounge.
Oh, Krishna Lounge. So you all didn't hear it. I was in Ukraine, and this devotee parents had a 4-year-old boy. So they very proudly told me, Maharaj, our little boy has decided to give you his dearmost possession. Our 4-year-old boy has decided to, as an expression of devotion, he's going to give you his greatest attachment. He's going to give you his favorite little toy truck. So it wasn't my idea. If I said, the parents, were so intent on this. Okay. So they brought the little boy into the room. He was carrying his nice little toy truck. And he started to walk towards me, and the parents were walking behind him very proudly. Oh, this is a very great act of devotion. This is very good for our child to be doing. I wasn't so sure, but when parents get some idea in their head, there's not much you can do, the Maharajas just have to. Each parent has their own idea of how children should be raised, and so each family has their own siddhanta. So yes. So the little boy began to come towards me holding the truck, and the parents were, one parent was on each side of him, and they were beaming with pride. And then as he got close to me, got about 2 feet away from me, he started looking at the toy truck, looking at me, and just burst out crying, "Wah!" And he just turned and buried himself in his mother's lap, you know. In other words, he couldn't do it. So I told the little boy, "It's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right." So the parents took him out of the room. So I came back 3 weeks later, and the parents told me, "This time he's really ready." Again, I said, again, you know, when parents have something in mind, you know, they want the Maharaj to give the blessings and all that. And what can you do, you know? I wasn't very sure it was a good idea, but they said, "Well, this time, what we've done is we've let him keep the favorite truck, and we had him buy a brand new toy truck, which is still in the box. And so he's going to give that to you." Yeah, the parents were really concerned that the boy should learn how to offer something, you know, to Guru Maharaj. And so, again, I wasn't so sure, but in Ukraine, everything really goes by kind of bhava feeling, you know. It's very serious business there. Sentiment is, it's not like we use the word sentiment here in the USA. Sentiment there is serious business. It's like it's the essence of life. So, anyway, they brought the little boy in again, and he had the little new toy truck in a box, you know, with the, what do you call it, the clear plastic window, where you can see the toy truck. And so I was watching him. He started walking toward me, and walking toward me. The parents again, one parent on each side of him, looking all proud. And so, again, as he got near me, he started looking at the box, looking through the plastic window. I could just see what he was thinking. This is a good truck. I don't know if I can give this up, even though I already have my favorite truck. Why should I give this to him? And he started looking at me like, what are you going to do with it anyway? You don't know the nectar of playing with trucks. So he just kept looking at the box of the toy truck in it, looking at me. And again, and buried himself in his mother's lap. And so I can see this is how we are with our attachments. We make such a big thing out of our material attachments. I was just talking to one of our senior Grihastha couples today, and they were telling me how as their relationship has matured, it's not that they don't fight anymore, but they just don't take it seriously. Whereas when they were younger, you know, an argument was like, you know, the defining thing of existence. Arguments were like life and death decisions. You had to take them so seriously. But as they're up in their years and as the decades of marriage have rolled by, they still have arguments and disputes, but it's just not taken seriously. Like Prabhupada gave the Vedic ideal of marriage arguments. Once Srila Prabhupada explained, in the morning, the husband, he's angry, he says, "That's it, I'm leaving." And the wife says, "That's okay, I'm leaving first." And then by evening, it's all forgotten. Prabhupada said that's the standard of Vedic marriage. The arguments are not taken seriously. Arguments between husband and wife aren't taken seriously. Just like you don't take arguments between children seriously. But if you try to apply that in modern society, people just totally bewildered. What arguments between husband and wife are taken in the same way as arguments between children? What kind of psychology is that? People don't understand. So, material expectations drive us crazy, and then we blame Krishna. And our longings for material happiness just consume us, even though material happiness, it's like a trinket, it's like a little toy. How will we give those trinkets up? Let Krishna give us entrance into a better world. That is the bhakti dynamic. Through devotional service, which begins with chanting the holy name, you get entrance into a different dimension. A dimension in which you can actually see that Krishna wants the best for you. No matter what kind of medicine he gives you, he wants to cure you. I'm sure some of you are into taking natural cures, alternative medicine. Sometimes it's bitter, but you still take it because you know it's meant to cure you. You don't really care so much whether the medicine is bitter or sweet. You want to be cured. So similarly, Krishna wants to cure these. But we are very stubborn in our dealings with Krishna. Yes, cure me, but make sure the medicine is sweet. But Krishna, as the doctor, knows the type of medicine that's best for us at the particular time. But we want to dictate to Krishna. And therefore we run into problems. We make our Krishna conscious advancement problematic by this stubborn attitude. Gradually, as the years go by in bhakti, your heart softens and you become grateful. Krishna, you actually know what you're doing. Thank you. I was just reading Answers to Questions by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. And he was saying that before the mercy comes, there seems to be a test. But the test is actually just a precursor. It's a forerunner to your getting the mercy. And good students like tests. I don't know if we have any, you know, when you were in school, were you a goody-goody student? Anyone here? You were like that, Krishna Kumar? So you liked exams, right? Yeah, it's a chance to show that you knew your stuff. Anyone else liked exams? You just knew your wife? She liked exams? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know the type.
So long ago, I can't remember.
Yeah.
That's why I gave her so many tests.
So, a good student likes tests, enjoys examinations. Because, you know, I'm prepared. I got all the answers. No one else was like that?
In subjects that I'm good at,
Yes.
but not in all.
But still, the subjects you were good at, you welcome tests, right? You could show your stuff, right? So similarly, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that a devotee likes tests from Krishna because the devotee is prepared. And Krishna never tests you more than what you've been prepared for. Again and again, this point is made in the 8th canto during the history of Bali Maharaj, who was tested extraordinarily by Lord Vamanadev. But Bali Maharaj had been extraordinarily prepared. So, several times in the purports, Prabhupada explains that Krishna never tests you more than you've been prepared for. He's a good teacher. Complete fairness. So therefore, the devotee is grateful for tests because the devotee has taken advantage of preparation. And the tests are a chance to show that the devotee is choosing Krishna. And then Krishna's mercy is given. There's no short-changing by Krishna. Like in tests in the material world. I know in one case, one student at university told me that right before the final exams, the teacher said, all right, I'm going to put the exam questions on the bulletin board outside the classroom. You can all copy down the questions and that way prepare for the exam and you'll really know the material because, because I've given you the questions beforehand. So the students were very happy. So then the students went out to the bulletin board and the questions weren't there. And so they brought it up to the teacher. What happened? You know, the questions aren't on the board. He said, well, obviously, one of you guys took the paper down from the bulletin board rather than just copying the questions. That's your problem. I put the questions on the bulletin board. So if they're not there, well, tough. You're still going to have to take the exam. That's a true story. Krishna doesn't treat us like that. So to deal with Krishna's tests, we need to slacken our grip on material happiness, because then we can experience the happiness of devotional service, which is incomparable. We need dynamic experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that comes through devotional service, which begins with chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. I was listening to you all chant tonight. You are in another dimension. It's no wonder, right, that our main means of devotional service is chanting. By this chanting, you are practicing the conclusion of the Vedas. You're at the end of all knowledge, Vedanta, just by chanting Hare Krishna. The more you chant, the better your life will be. And especially if you can help others to chant, the better your life will be. The more you give Krishna, the more you'll get Krishna. Simply by this chanting and dancing. Sometimes it may seem so simple to you that it can't be true. There's so many complicated problems in the world, right? For those of us who live in the real world and have to pay mortgages and have to deal with the workplace and studies, can it really be that chanting Hare Krishna is the appropriate solution to all situations? I don't know. It can't be that simple. I mean, when I'm with devotees and we chant, I feel good. But then there's the real world out there, right? Full of complexities and intricacies. There's my home life, my family life, full of diplomacy and intricacies. There's the workplace, full of diplomacy and intricacies. How can it really be that chanting Hare Krishna is the ultimate? And if I focus on chanting Hare Krishna as the number one priority in my life, everything else works out. To get that conviction that this is the case, we need to chant in the association of dedicated chanters. It's not recommended that we just chant alone, because doubts will come. Our mind overwhelms us. Are you sure this is really doing something? Right? I'm not hearing anyway. I'm not hearing the mantra. I mean, maybe I should just give up. Why should I make a show? And of course, your mind starts dictating to you, just give it up. You're not hearing. You're just making so many offenses while you chant. Just put your bead bag down. Be practical. You live in the real world anyway. Is it so that living in the so-called real world gives you so much pride? I live in the real world. I can cope. I can deal with the world. Where does that false sense of honor come from that we give ourselves for struggling in the so-called real world? I remember as a little boy, my father had a special antique desk in his house, a small antique desk and chair. And every Saturday morning, this is when, bills came in the mail and you wrote out checks. So every Saturday morning, he would sit at this special little antique desk and with a special letter opener, slit open the envelopes with all the bills, and then he would write a check. And so this was known as his special bill-paying desk. Now, of course, a father should be responsible and take care of his family. That's not the point. But as a little kid, I was amazed how this desk assumed like kind of a religious function. I'm in the real world. I am paying bills, therefore I exist, and therefore my existence in this world is proper because I'm able to pay my bills. And I'm doing that at a special antique bill-paying desk. So I was a little kid and I was thinking, I even asked him when I was 9 years old, Father, what's so special about a bill-paying desk? Son, you'll find out one day. It's a feeling of satisfaction to know that you are making progress in the world and everything is under control. You'll understand one day. So, this is the way material existence treats us. It gives us a false sense of fulfillment while kicking us in the face. Actually, that's what goes on. If you're strong enough to see it that way. But I know it can be kind of scary, so I won't talk about that too much. So let's go back to that point about material happiness. Its very composition is such that it can't satisfy you. It's so ethereal, it's so, it's like you're grabbing smoke. You ever tried to sit by a fireplace and grab the smoke? Okay, got it. You open your hand. Oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. You keep grabbing, and finally you just get a sore arm, you know? So that's what material happiness is like. But Krishna, through devotional service, is offering us something else. When we get that something else, then we'll slacken our grip on material happiness. So Krishna is the most expert pleasure psychologist. As he says in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that when you get the higher taste from him, naturally you'll let go of the lower taste from material nature. You can never burn out the lower self and think that automatically that will reveal the higher self. It doesn't work like that. You have to choose. Love means choice. How would you ladies like it if a potential husband told you, you know, I really want to marry you, but before I marry you, I've got to burn myself out with as many girls as possible? How many ladies here would go for that program? As you see, once I burn myself out with all the girls in town, I'll naturally just come back to you. What do you think? So this idea that we can indulge the lower self to such a degree that it'll be burnt and there'll be nothing left but the higher self, this is complete foolishness. The more you indulge in the lower self, the more you destroy yourself. And destroy those around you. So, our problem of happiness can easily be solved by taking the happiness of devotional service. According to our lifestyle and capacity, there's always something we can do. And coming together and chanting Hare Krishna, talking about our attempts to serve Krishna, this is part of the bhakti process. This is a loving exchange. So, please understand that bhakti is the real world. The real world, it consists of the highest aspirations, not the lowest aspirations. I always ask people, why do you take something so crude, something so low and debased, and call that the real world? Who started this propaganda? Where does this notion come from? Why not take the noblest thing, the most genuine, authentic thing, and say, that's the real world? Okay? So here we are tonight, dealing with the real world. Congratulations. All right, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
The happiness in your karma, and you can't get any more or any less than you have coming to you. Bhakti yoga doesn't necessarily bring happiness, or just brings discipline, or being more satisfied because you lowered your standards. Or, this is my question, what if you don't have the karma that this wonderful movement has in store? Like, everything seems so wonderful and happy. What if it's not my karma to experience it?
Devotional service has nothing to do with your karma.
Okay, okay. But the happiness that I feel when I'm with all the devotees and at the temple, that must be in my karma.
No.
Okay, so then maybe you could explain that then.
The happiness that you feel with devotees and when you come to the temple is because you're participating in Krishna's pleasure.
Okay, so I'm mixing that up with sense gratification pleasure. Or
Generally speaking,
something
yes.
like that. Okay.
Yeah. So go for it.
Okay. Well, no, I just
Be greedy. You know how to be greedy?
Yeah, sure. I can give it my best shot.
Yeah, okay. Now's the time to be greedy.
Okay. I can learn.
You know, I've got to have it. I've got to have it. I will have it. More, more, more. Yeah.
So I understand that. I think.
Very good. Yes.
About the distress, we mentioned nobody is praying Krishna for distress, so we agree with that. But we get it, no matter what, whether we want it or not. But probably there's more of a desire because Krishna is fulfilling that.
Say that again. What's the last thing?
Krishna fulfills all the desires. So somebody, even whether it's consciously or unconsciously, he's looking for unhappiness because he wants to be in the material world, so suffer. So Krishna provides that.
You're not looking for unhappiness, but like a child, you've gone for the wrong thing and therefore you're getting bad consequences. Krishna is arranging for his devotees to advance in his service. The happiness and distress that we get due to our karma is actually superficial. It's not the real essence of what's going on. So gradually, by practicing the bhakti system, stressed so seriously,